Hi class, this is Mr. Tan, and today we're looking at organisational behaviour. No, we're not. What are we doing?
Organisational
structure. We're doing hospitality. So we're doing hospitality, contemporary hospitality, Unit 1, and we're looking at 1.2. Now, just to start off, you are being videoed. It will be uploaded to YouTube and linked to the online class. So anyone who doesn't want to be part of it, doesn't agree to being part of this video, needs to leave now. Anyone who stays, you will be part and put on YouTube. Link to the online class. But only you guys have access to this. Okay, now, we're doing 1.2. 1.2, what do we always do to start off? We look good. We start with the question and we break down the question, because if you can't understand the question, then you can't really answer the question. So the question says, discuss the organisational structure of different hospitality organisations. So discuss, key word here. What does discuss mean? Talk about. Talk about the different things, okay, or write about. Okay. So the different organisational structure of different hospitality organisations. So what must we find out or talk about first? Do you think? What should we talk about first? Good. The first thing we need to do is to talk about organisational structures. We need to understand something about organisational structures. This whole question 1.2, we're looking for about 300 words. So when you're talking about organisational structures, you could spend about 100 to 150 words explaining organisational structures. So what are organisational structures? What do we mean?
Department or report to who?
Yes, the different departments within a company or organisation, the lines of control, the spans of control, and a way of controlling the whole organisation. So, when we're looking at the organisational structure, we're saying to ourselves, it's the simplest way to show how a business is organised, is to look at the organisational structure. How the business is organised, who reports to who, shows the management hierarchy in a business, works from top to bottom. It shows the span of control, line management, and a chain of command. And it will show you how tall the structure is or how short the structure is. Okay? So when we're looking at these things, you can see some examples here. You do have access to this. You may have a structure here whereby you have a managing director and then operation directors, followed by managers of different departments, and then staff who report to those managers. So here we can see the structure of this hypothetical organisation. Likewise, when we're talking about the span of control, we're saying to ourselves, how many people reports to that person? So span of control, for instance, in this example, is 7, whereby you have one manager, one director, and he is in control of 7 people. 7 people report to him. Do you want too many people reporting to you?
No.
No, because why?
We don't have time.
Because it's a question of time. If you have too many people reporting to you, then you have to control all those people's activities and their aims and what they're trying to achieve. And you have to sit down with them to make sure that they're achieving these things. So I would suggest, maximum 8 to 12 people span of control. Anything more than that could become too unmanageable.
You say 8, between 8 and 12?
Yeah, maximum I would suggest. But there are some companies who may have more. Here is an example of a narrow span of control. A narrow span of control where you have a director and then 3 managers reporting to the director. It's easy for the director because the director only has 3 people reporting to him. And he doesn't have all the other people underneath them. He only has to work out, are these managers achieving what they need to achieve in those different areas? Okay? So when we look at span of control, a narrow span of control means that allows for closer supervision of employees. The manager knows what's happening because he's got less people to deal with. Whereas for a wide span of control, people have more independence. That can be a good thing as well. If people want more independence and less control. With a narrow span of control, because it's narrow, you may have more hierarchical levels, so the structure may be taller. Whereas on a wider span of control, the structure may be flatter. Does that make sense? And for a narrow span of control, because everyone's so narrow and everyone understands and can see what everyone else is doing, it means there is more effective communication. And it can be quite a good thing in terms of a narrow span of control, because then people can see what's happening at the top, and then the different departments can work together. So for instance, if you had Apple and you had the hardware department and software department, and if you had a new product development with a new app on the Apple phone, well then you would need to make sure that the hardware department is working with the software department to make sure that whatever they're developing for the idea, for the software, works with the hardware. Because if it doesn't work and it's not compatible, then it's never going to work. Then you launch the phone and then you have problems, you have bugs in the phone. That's because the communication between different departments doesn't work. And likewise, in a hotel or restaurant, you've got different departments with food and beverage. Number of customers coming in, the front desk. How many customers do you have checking in? Well, that's going to have an impact on your restaurant. How many people are dining? How many people are eating? Which will have an impact in terms of how much food you would need to have on that days for the restaurant. Do you understand? So again, different departments need to be talking to each other. Okay. When we're all, that span of control. Span of control depends on, the personality, skill, and experience of the manager, the size and complexity of the business. Okay. Whether the business is centralized or decentralized, and the extent to which there are clear objectives. Okay. So you're going to have more supervision, when it's less complex. But the more complex it is, you're going to have a wider span, because you can't control all of it anyway. You need specialist people in those areas to conduct those roles and functions. You as a manager, you may not know everything about food and beverage. Yeah. So you have a person who is a specialist in terms of food and beverage, who has the qualifications and experience to do these things. Okay. So we've got, when we look at the levels of hierarchy, how tall is the structure? It has a tall structure where you have the CEO at the top, you have the marketing, either directors, and then marketing managers, team supervisors, team leaders, and staff. Here you can see there are many different layers with a tall hierarchical structure where the system and the company is more complex. And here is an example of a flat structure where there's less layers. Here you have the CEO, you have the directors or managers, and then team leaders, and then team members. Okay, the team members report to the team leaders to the directors or managers. Okay. A tall structure sometimes is called traditional or mechanistic structure. Many layers and narrow spans of control. Okay, tall structure, narrow span of control. A flat structure, you're talking about, is organistic. Flat hierarchical structure, wide spans of control, and delegation is encouraged. Okay. This is on page 16 on the online class, okay? So the key features of a tall structure allows tighter control, more opportunities for promotion. Because you've got more layers, then there's more opportunity for people to move up within those layers. So clear lines of promotion, which is good, okay? Because that could motivate people to want to progress in the company. Takes longer for communication to pass through the layers. So it could take, which could be a disadvantage for a tall structure. If someone has an idea at the bottom, it could take a long time for that idea to get to the director right at the top, to the CEO. Okay? More layers, more staff, higher costs. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
One of the biggest expenses in any business, in any organisation, is going to be people, the staff.
Yeah.
And sometimes, probably you've seen it or not, sometimes a company would say, I'm not making enough profit, let's cut one layer of employees. Let's cut all the managers, or let's cut these staff. Yeah? comments of a flat structure, fewer layers, wide spans of control, less direct control, and more delegation. Because when there's a wider span and you've got more people reporting to you, you have to allow them to get on and do their job. You can't have too much time to spend with all these different type of people. So you have to allow them to get on with it. Okay? So more delegation. Fewer opportunities for promotion. Because there are less layers, there's less opportunity for promotion to go up. Yeah? Vertical communication is improved. Fewer layers, less staff, lower costs. So a wide span, predominantly, you've got lower costs. So when we look at the this slide here, remember I told you the next slide. Let me just show you in here. If you go down to this slide here, 1.2 pp. This is the second slide. So this slide here and these PowerPoint slides I want you to look at. So which takes us into here. And here you can see some examples of a hotel organizational chart. Okay, you may have the general manager in the hotel, and then within the hotel you've got the rooms division, food and beverage, director, controller, and then you've got front office manager, reservations manager, housekeeping, restaurant